In the name of the beneficent and merciful God, peace and mercy and blessings of God be with you all. Hello, I am your brother in faith, Shabir Ally, and today I bring you another book review. And today I'm reviewing this book. It's called A Guide to Science and Belief. It comes in a new version, which is entitled A User's Guide to Science and Belief. It's a very interesting book. It's not very thick to read, and in fact, there's little text in it. There's a lot of illustration, a lot of good illustrations, and so it would be a quick read. But it's also a very handy reference work and a number of very important topics that are relevant to people of faith in our modern scientific world. Because whether you're a Christian or Muslim or Jew or person of some other faith, you might be faced with questions about, like, how does your religion align with modern scientific concepts, and what can you say about the clash between science and belief? And this book gives you a lot of good points to use. For example, it talks in part 1 about God's 2 books, saying that on the one hand, God has sent you a scripture that's in a written form, and God has given you signs in the world of creation, and the 2 are each ways leading to God. So they shouldn't be in contradiction to each other. The book that God has revealed is going to give you the same information that is basically there, or at least compatible information, that which is there in God's physical creation. So each should be read as a book from God and to be understood. Now that's interesting from a Muslim point of view, because we learn from the Quran that you should travel and see how God has initiated creation. So by traveling, we get to know more about the landscape, about the things that God has created, the wonders of the world. In part 2, he addresses the misconception that science and faith are at enmity with each other. And he traces some interactions between science and religion in the Middle Ages, for example, with Galileo, which he will deal with again in more greater detail in part 7 of his book, where he shows that, yes, there were some moments of tension, but a lot of the tension often was not between religion on the one hand and science on the other hand. Sometimes there were actually tensions between different interpretations of science, and some people of religion held on to one interpretation, some held on to the other, and religion was pulled in as if religion is really at odds with science. But religion does not need to be at odds with science, because religion and science are 2 different ways of basically reaching the same goal. And in terms of the evidence for belief, Michael Poole is the author. I should have named the author right from the very start. His name is Michael Poole. So Michael Poole shows that you don't have to have evidence for everything. And there was in the Middle Ages an idea that arose that is labeled now logical positivism. And that is the idea that you must have evidence for everything that you believe. Only that which is proven should be believed. But that is a principle that actually recoils on itself and is self-defeating, because nobody has ever proven that logical positivism as a concept is the correct concept. If logical positivism is the idea that you have to only believe that which you can first prove, well, then first you have to prove logical positivism itself. You have to prove that it is necessary to believe only in that which you can prove. And that first proof is definitely lacking. So that principle is accepted by faith. And so one does not have any leeway to first accept that on faith and then insisting that people of faith should have proof for everything that they believe. At the same time, he warns against a concept that is known as nothing buttery, where people think that the human composition is only the chemicals that make up our body. But he says no, that we're more than the chemicals that make up our body. And we cannot say that, okay, if we take so much of phosphorus and so much of iron and so much of chlorine and so much of fat, which you can get from 10 bars of soap, then you can make the human body. No, it's not only the human body; it's the whole human composition, a mind, body, and everything. And that requires a better explanation that can be offered by science. Science can only tell us about the physical composition of our bodies, but cannot tell us about the details of why we are here and where we are going. In other words, science can tell us about how we are here, but not why we are here. Science cannot give us meaning. It can only explain the material. And so where do we get meaning? We get it from religion. And when we talk about God, he reminds us, Michael Poole reminds us that God is not simple to describe using our languages, because our languages are based on human experiment and human experience. And when we use the words from our human experience to describe God, sometimes we can give the wrong impression. So he quotes Professor C.S. Lewis as speaking about how the words which we use might actually give a mistaken impression to somebody else. For example, he says, a girl I knew was brought up by higher thinking parents to regard God as a perfect substance. In later life, she realized that this had actually led her to think of him as something like a vast tapioca pudding. And to make matters worse, she disliked tapioca. So when her parents told her that God is a perfect substance, she thought, oh, what's a perfect substance? Tapioca pudding. So she thought that God is like tapioca pudding. So what Michael Poole wants to illustrate with this quotation from Professor C.S. Lewis is that when we use language, we are often using analogous language to refer to God. And we should be aware that that language may convey concepts which are not exactly right and fitting for God. So it's only to give us some idea, but cannot fulfill the full function of getting us to really know God. And how might we know God? Well, that's the matter of religious practice and religious immersion. There is a section here dealing also with the concept of evolution and how that can be reconciled with religion, and how design in things around us actually point to God. And so we cannot escape God when we look at the design in the human behavior, in human and animal composition, and in the physical features of the world around us. So, in short, this here is a very comprehensive book, though it's small and though its texts are few and its illustrations many. Nonetheless, it is a book that I found myself going back to again and again. It has helped me to prepare for many of my lectures over the years, and it has helped me in my debates with atheists and others. It is a book that has actually changed my life, and I hope that it will have an impact on your life as well. Perhaps it may even change your life. Thank you for watching. I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ally. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. Videos like this one cost a lot of money to create. We do it for the pleasure of God. We want to give you the opportunity to share in the reward from God. Support us today and help us reach people all over the world. Visit QuranSpeaks.com and click Donate. Remember, your donation is zakat eligible and tax deductible.